When a show has a lot of characters, it's inevitable that some will become loved, while others become disliked or hated. A lack of focus, annoying personality, or being unable to stand out can lead many down the road of disdain. This idea of audience opinion is natural, but gets a bit more complicated when what happens is directly influenced by the fans, because no matter how big a hate base a character may have, they could still somehow have the support needed to survive. Enter Battle for Dream Island, a show directly bound by the opinions of the people watching it. If you're watching this video, then you probably already know what the show is and how it works, but in case you don't, think Survivor, but the voting is done through viewers voting to eliminate or save characters. TV is a character who, as of right now, is in the final 17 of one of the two current seasons, The Power of Two, and is my personal favorite character. He's survived 5 eliminations to make it to this point, yet is arguably the biggest hate base of anyone left in the game. It's cool for people to have different opinions. I can definitely see where some criticism of him stems from in his earlier seasons, but the major reason why he's hated has always been interesting to me, especially after his most recent episode. I think he's super underappreciated and often mischaracterized by his haters, so let's go over his journey up until now. His highs, lows, survival, what the future could hold for his character, and how he's deserved his spot in TPOT. His journey begins where all great characters do, running into a vat of hydrochloric acid. Now that doesn't really matter. His journey really begins being one of the 30 characters eligible to join the show in episode 18 of season 1. He only got 13 votes to join, 7th overall, and while he really doesn't do much else this season, we do see the first use of his defining gimmick, his screen. If you haven't seen BFDI before, then you should know that many characters, especially early on, when the creators were so young, were defined more so by a gimmick than, character arcs. Because TV is a TV, he uses his screen to communicate, which is different from any other contestant. The way it's used when his votes are revealed in episode 19 is already really fun despite how short the bid is. Not to disrespect David, but if TV did somehow join, I think he would have been a fun addition to the latter half of season 1. Since he didn't join though, he, again, literally does nothing else for the rest of the season, so let's just move on to season 2. Now you'd think there wouldn't be much to talk about here either, since with only 287 votes, TV fell just short of joining BFDIA by only 4 votes after removing contestants not present. Most characters were simply flung to the TLC/LOL, but TV gets to play a special role. Due to being closest to the announcer, who flew to space but not really at the end of season 1, he becomes the new host. I think the justification is kinda weird, since they could have just said it was because he was the closest to joining, but either way, I'm not complaining about his unique role. What I will complain about though, is how little it matters, since outside of the first 2 episodes, he gets really shafted once Puffball and Fiery Speakerbox take over as the primary hosts before TV is removed altogether in episode 7. Despite having less than 5 minutes of screen time as the host of BFDIA, there are still inklings of what his character would develop into. Let's start with the obvious, displaying information. It starts with just showing the votes, but episode 5A is a bit more creative by having him quip during the elimination. Again, it's nothing crazy, but they were at least trying to do something fun with him, even while overshadowing him at the same time. We also see him briefly use a robotic Scottish accent when talking, which is another part of his character that's really fun, but pretty inconsistent throughout the show, considering how little it's used here and in BFB. The voice gets subbed out for another way of communicating I'll get into when it first comes up, but just know that I think the Scottish accent definitely suits his character well, and it's just another small thing that makes him stand out to me. Now before moving to his start as a competitor, I should mention how his role could expand in IDFB, the 3rd season which is likely to resume after BFDIA ends. In episode 7, when TV is removed from hosting and flung to the LOL after flopping his elimination song, he steals the key to the LOL, which prevents anyone from entering or leaving. My guess would be that he'd want to free himself or everyone else once he got trapped, but that wasn't possible based on the location of the lock. It only serves to set up the challenge in the short term, but the long-term result of trapping everyone is very significant to the show. I could see TV stealing the key becoming a point of conflict in IDFB, since it probably won't be brought up now, since it wasn't when there was actual focus on the LOLers. Speaking of which, he does help display information in the episodes where everyone in the LOL hosts, but outside of that, his role in BFDIA feels complete. With his small but kinda interesting start out of the way, it's time to dive into what could be called his first real season, BFB. From here on out, I'll be going into much more depth on each episode, not by detailing only what happens to TV, but also the major conflict of the team he's on. Since the only thing TV does in the introduction of episode 1, before 4 next start the competition, is glaze a loser, which is surprisingly pretty common, we might as well get into the formation of his BFB team, a better name than that. First basketball and 8-ball pair up since they're both balls, they then recruit golf ball and tennis ball for the same reason. After that, basketball lets Grassy join, before golf ball concludes that having mechanical minds is crucial to having an advantage over the other teams, leading to TV and Robot Flower joining. All that's left is Grassy enticing Blocky with funny doings, making their team set. The challenge, which is to bring X a basket, does a great job at setting up the general dynamics and conflict of the team, with no one willing to listen to Golf Ball micromanaging, Blocky being especially against her, Tennis Ball building stuff, and 8-Ball taking charge and causing his team to be safe. Golf Ball and 8-Ball are the major players, having the main plotline of the team. Blocky, Tennis Ball, and even Basketball aren't as major, but are still generally relevant across the rest of the challenges. The other three? Well, it's time to get into the major sticking point of why TV is disliked that started from this season. He does nothing. You see, in BFB and in some stretches of TPOT, TV does not get much time in the spotlight. This is commonly equated with the sentiment that TV doesn't do anything, which, while completely false in TPOT, seemingly has more weight in BFB. Now, it definitely is a problem, but he does have some excuses. For one, BFB starts with 64 characters, and it's simply unreasonable to expect all of them to get focus. Just on a better name than that, Robot Flower and even Basketball only play major roles in one episode, while Grassy kinda just hangs out along with TV. To show my point, I've organized the screen time of all 64 contestants in the first half of BFB using the numbers from those BFB but only blank videos. It's obviously not 100% accurate, and screen time isn't everything, but the tiers do give a general idea as to how much each character gets to shine in the first 16 episodes of BFB. As you could see, TV isn't very high on the list, but he's also not at the bottom, which deserves a little credit at least. Another reason to cut TV some slack is a bit of a double-edged sword, but it's that he's generally characterized as someone who is content not being the center of attention. It carries over from his hosting style, as he's happy with simply being helpful to everyone around him. Now, using his personality to justify why he doesn't get much focus in BFB is very arbitrary, but again, there are many characters whose contributions are smaller or isolated to one episode. Being a small, but kinda general presence works for TV in such a big season, and though his role may be on the lower end, that doesn't mean there isn't some interesting stuff to analyze when looking at his role and the conflict that befalls his team. With the stage set, let's get into what the better namers get up to in the next few episodes. In episode 2, the big conflict for the team is fully introduced after 8-Ball wins the challenge again by freeing Golf Ball from a jawbreaker. Basically, Golf Ball isn't treating everyone with respect, so Blocky, Basketball, and I guess Grassy and Robot Flower crown 8-Ball as the team leader. This conflict continues into episode 3, with everyone only listening to 8-Ball when he says the opposite of what Golf Ball says, and episode 4, where as per 8-Ball's request, everyone wastes time in the art piece competition until there are literally 10 seconds left. They don't lose either challenge, but since they barely win the art challenge, 8-Ball gets real sad and acknowledges that he's not a good leader. Despite that, not only do Blocky and Basketball still refuse to accept Golf Ball as a leader, but the rivalry between them doesn't even end here. Robot Flower is actually about to take Golf Ball's side in the feud, but it's here where we get the first speaking line of TV.
Why are you talking? You're a machine.
This line is honestly a bit weird considering he has a good relationship with Robot Flower, but as a first line, I think it's meant to plainly show his aversion to conflict. They haven't lost yet after all, so TV doesn't really care about who the team leader is, and doesn't want Robot Flower to be blamed for causing any big rifts on the team. He also equates her role as a machine for being a reason to stay out of the conflict, which is interesting and could show how he views himself and the other mechanical minds as different from the rest of the contestants. Wow, that was a lot to get out of one line. So let's move on to episode 5, where there is actually nothing to talk about. Only 3 teams get meaningful screen time, and a better name than that isn't one of them. Thankfully, there is a bit more to talk about in the next pair of episodes. In episode 6, for plot reasons not related to TV, all the better namers get on a sled during the elimination and crash into 4, X, and Donut. This vanishes both hosts before the final votes are shown, allowing TV to take their place and display the votes in a throwback to his hosting days. The better namers continue to get content in the challenge that's just eye contact hot potato when they use a rocket to fly to the moon. It doesn't really work out though, since they get trapped in a stalemate when get infected while hitching a ride. TV concludes there is only a 0.0017% chance someone will naturally look up at the moon, but the stalemate is broken by Taco charming Belle. They may be safe for now, but both teams are still trapped going into episode 7, and since the challenge involves blocking a goal not on the moon, they decide to work together. Basketball uses Robot Flower, TV, and the rocket ship to hack into the only remaining mechanical mind now that Roboti is gone, Remote. This works pretty well until the signal buffers, Remote sends them a bomb, and Robot Flower terminates the signal to prevent both teams on the moon from dying. This causes a better name than that to lose, to the disappointment of Golf Ball and Basketball in both Robot Flower and TV. Basketball questions if TV knew that Robot Flower broke the signal, where he says,
"I side with Robot Flower. Mechanical minds stick together."
Now that they've lost, a rift will form in their team no matter what, so TV makes his allegiance known. He will side with Robot Flower, no matter who gets eliminated. Someone will be eliminated though now that they've lost, so let's see how this goes for TV. Just a quick aside, but I love TV's voting icon. All the early BFB icons are great, but he just shows so much personality and his drive to stay in the game just by saying don't. Now, before the elimination is started, Donut tries to use TV to broadcast the ceremony into space, when Golf Ball asks TV not to fudge the voting results, which he subtly denies. Not much to get into here, man just doesn't want to be eliminated, but maybe he's doing a bit since he already knows he's safe. He knew the results in episode 5 after all, so who's to say he doesn't know the results every time? No time for theories though, because once Donut's arms get stuck on the moon side, he pushes the entire Earth to the other side, which brings everyone back to Earth for the elimination. Tennis Ball is the first safe, followed by Blocky, TV, Grassy, and Basketball. Though there is a big gap between Blocky and TV, he was never really in danger of being eliminated thanks to the bottom 3. Robot Flower seemingly cost them the challenge, while the team leader conflict between Golf Ball and 8 Ball would certainly make them bigger targets to be eliminated. 8 Ball is the one who gets out here, and while his elimination has really big consequences for another character, it doesn't really matter for TV. His team is safe during the trivia challenge, so let's move on to the rest of BFB. Episodes 9, 10, 11, and 12 are all not very significant for the better namers, and especially not for TV. He's barely in episode 9, barely in the status quo reset of episode 10, doesn't appear at all in episode 11, and is only used for some fun visuals and a flashback in episode 12. It's almost like the 8 Ball and Golf Ball plotline was really carrying this team in terms of screen time, but I digress, because episode 13 introduces a new way of communication into TV's kit, and it's one that I'm a bit mixed on. The challenge is to find X's favorite thing, which as Tennis Ball learns is an emerald. TV declares,
"Now we must keep this secret so we have an advantage over the other teams."
I think using the screen to call back to older episodes is fun, but when it becomes the only way he talks for a while, it becomes limiting very quickly. 1, I bet searching for when characters say specific things would be super annoying, and 2, it gives TV less memorability. The Scottish accent is iconic, and he loses it for quite a bit in favor of this manner of speech. Even with this shift, he does become more active though, because after Basketball thinks that Golf Ball doesn't trust her, he brings up the fact that she was the imposter in the challenge last episode. It's just another instance of TV trying to make peace, not wanting another big conflict, even if, as Basketball replies, herself being the imposter wasn't her fault. After this, Robot Flower fetches the rocket from the moon, which they repurpose into a drill. Carrying over into the next episode, the team finds an emerald and secures their safety. Later in the challenge though, a lava leak floods the grasslands, which kills TV and many other contestants off screen. He gets recovered in episode 15, but also doesn't do anything else of note, which brings us to the end of BFB. Pre-split, that is. There's some interesting real-life reasons behind the choice, but in-universe, a new host, 2, lands on Earth and entices the contestants to join their show. A competition for, obviously, 2's power. TV immediately switches sides, not being moved by the new prize 4 offers, and ends BFB becoming one of the 40 contestants ready to battle for limitless power. That concludes TV's role in BFB, and I gotta say, he's just fine. His minimal role during the 8-ball and golf ball conflict is interesting through hyper-analysis, but could easily be me reading too much into it. He gets a little more attention in the latter pre-split episodes, but his team in general loses a lot of focus after 8-ball's elimination, which is why I could breeze through the second half of pre-split BFB. I liked him at this point when I first watched the show, but he hadn't become an all-time favorite yet. You could see the general opinion of him was pretty neutral from the official popularity poll Jacknjellify did during episode 13, in which TV received 302 votes, 53rd overall, and only 13% of what the highest voted black hole received. He wasn't loved, but at this point he definitely didn't have a hate base. Like many characters going into TPOT, he was gearing up for a glow up. This is where I, and many others, started to really enjoy TV, but it's also where most of his polarization began. It won't be obvious at first, but soon we'll reach the heart of why the divided opinions on TV came to exist. Before that though, let's head into the start of TPOT. Like for BFB1, I'll start by going over the formation of the team TV started on. Are you okay? TV does display some things during the debuter vote at the start of the episode, but winner and price tag don't matter at all for TV's journey, so let's just get into the team. Things start very similarly to A Better Name Than That, with golf ball and tennis ball pairing up, basketball joining, but this time Puffball joins, not appreciating that she wasn't considered for the formation of an all-ball team. This then prompts Fries to join to be with Puffball, Eraser to join to stick with the free food, and Pen joins to be with Eraser. That's a full team, but where's TV? Well, Golf Ball complains about having so many useless people, which reminds Basketball that she really doesn't want to be on a team with her. She leaves to join the remaining better namers in Robot Flower and Grassy, freeing up a spot. Golf Ball is happy with this, and she invites TV to join, which completes the team. They then win the challenge of getting up to the new hotel roof quite easily thanks to TV suggesting they use a trebuchet, and Puffball stopping them from being in a loop of launching back and forth. That's all we get from Are You OK in episode 1, and unlike A Better Name Than That, the team dynamics aren't immediately clear. They shift a good bit throughout the first phase of the game, and there isn't really a strict hierarchy of relevance. Everyone is always kinda doing something, even in the episodes where some characters on the team, or the team as a whole, aren't the most relevant, which naturally bodes well for TV. This can be immediately seen in the block stacking challenge of episode 2, where Are You OK happens to not be super relevant. Fries, Tennis Ball, Pen, and Puffball are focused on stacking, Eraser is sabotaging other teams, and Golf Ball and TV are collaborating to try to find the best way of stacking. Golf Ball is a perfectionist though, and can't stomach any risk of the stack falling over even if, as TV says, stability isn't everything. He doesn't want to keep wasting time, but he also wants to keep Golf Ball happy. He does admonish Puffball's suggestion to glue the blocks together as cheating, but encouraging something that could get their team disqualified makes sense. Once their stack is knocked over though, and Golf Ball realizes that it can't fall over with just one block, TV responds with Fanny's iconic I Hate You clip, cause yeah, he really did just waste time trying to figure out the optimal way of stacking. They don't lose the challenge though, so any ill will between Golf Ball and TV isn't explored further. You know what else isn't explored further? TV in episode 3. The challenge is to use the blocks from last episode to make a theme park attraction, which they opt to make a roller coaster that TV designs the chairs for. He gets super gassed up by his team, which prompts Puffball to make a dangerous roller coaster to get some appreciation, only for it to instead lead to them barely being safe and making Golf Ball very angry with her. This is actually the start of the Golf Ball and Puffball rivalry turned friendship plotline, meaning TV started it without even talking to Puffball this episode. Not much more to say, other than it's neat how things connect like that. Episode 4 one-ups TV's indirect involvement because now anyone that isn't Puffball and Are You OK have literally 2 scenes. TV does calculate some reverberation rates, but since they don't lose the challenge, I'm just going to move on to what is by far the most relevant episode for TV up until now. The challenge of episode 5 is to retrieve a plate from the bottom of the Gleiki Canal. Golf Ball flexes the robotic fish monster submarine she built to outshine the breathable bubbles Basketball and Robot Flower built, but this just prompts them and the rest of their team, the strongest team on Earth, to steal it. Once they go underwater, they realize they accidentally kidnapped TV, so they make him a hostage. The first thing of note is that the Scottish voice is back. This hasn't been used since BFB 7, so seeing it return here is already great, but what happens next is very interesting. After everyone on the strongest team on Earth stops paying attention to Robot Flower and TV says this:
Robot Flower, they don't care about us machines. We should take down this fish before it gets out of hand.
Sorry, TV. I'm sticking with my team.
Robot Flower, trust me. Destroy it before it gets out of control. Us mechanical minds have to stick together.
No, I can't.
Even though TV has respect for Robot Flower, he exploits the lack of consideration the team has been showing her to make Robot Flower self-sabotage. She doesn't budge at first, but once they use the fish submarine to try and trick the aquatic life, she claps back and self-destructs the submarine. This not only causes the strongest team on Earth to lose, but it also kickstarts a major arc between Robot Flower and Basketball that lasts from now to episode 13. TV's drive to win is on full display here. It started with him just not wanting internal conflict in BFB, but now he's willing to use malicious tactics to support his team and cause another team to lose. Unfortunately for him, 2 teams started to lose per episode as of episode 3, and Are You OK is unable to pull out the W. Puffball and Fries put up a valiant effort sabotaging other teams, but Tennis Ball, Golf Ball, Pen, and Eraser totally choke. They're up for elimination now, so let's see how this goes. The prelude before the elimination in episode 6 isn't very significant for TV, but 4 and X do come back now that BFB is done, and that's pretty cool. After Eggy is eliminated on the strongest team on Earth, we begin the first elimination for Are You OK? Pen and Golf Ball are the first 2 safe, TV, Puffball, and Eraser are the next few safe, and with only a 33 vote difference, Tennis Ball survives and Fries gets the boot. Fries being booted here may seem surprising, even considering this was before BFDIA came back, but looking at how the gap between him and the 5th safe Eraser was 46 votes, he didn't go down without a fight. This isn't about Fries though, as TV being 3rd safe considering his content makes sense, along with cementing TV on a lot of people's radar. I'd argue that episode 5 is what garnered the loyal vote base he's had throughout TPOT, a bit before his hate base started to grow. He remains relevant in the food challenge, as he suggests they find a dream berry for 2 and helps locate it for them. Even with some strife caused by the Golf Ball and Puffball beef, the team pulls through, and Golf Ball even apologizes to Puffball. Just good stuff all around for TV and Are You OK as a whole. When people talk about TPOT 7, Are You OK isn't really discussed compared to the major stuff happening on the other teams, yet it still gives more insight into TV's character. The challenge is to fix the landmarks destroyed by Lightning's fury, and Are You OK needs to fix a volcano. Golf Ball starts to take the role as leader again when she's cut off by
That's the quiet alarm. Golf Ball, you're off duty this episode.
Sorry, GB, but it's time you took a step back for a bit. You too, Puffy.
What? But why?
We always seem to get into some sort of mess because of you two. Just take the day off.
It seems like Pen, Eraser, and TV have come to a consensus that Golf Ball and Puffball have been responsible for the rifts forming on their team. TV taking a side shows growth, or at least a different approach to his mindset from BFB. Now that there's more pressure in the game, he feels like taking a side to cut out the problem starters on the team will be more beneficial to their success. After sending the two of them away, Eraser asks TV what they should do, to which he doesn't have a clue on what to do until Tennis Ball says to use glue. TV immediately follows up with how he knows Robot Flower is likely to have some, and that he has access to Robot Flower's store thanks to their mechanical mind truce. Once again, TV is great at supporting the ideas of others, while not being as consistent when the pressure is fully on him. He even drives the team back to the hotel, and from there they get the glue and secure their victory. Now things seem to be going well for TV, but remember what I said about the edit. The cards haven't been stacked against him yet, but that would change in episode 8. Now I don't think any TPOT episode is flat out bad, but this episode is pretty mid for reasons including, but not limited to, how dirty the writers did TV here. The challenge is to stay on a balance beam, and after hopping over a rolling, now armless, donut, TV points out how good it is that they have the numbers advantage over the other teams. Golf Ball chooses to pair up with Puffball again, as to not squander their lead, while Eraser suggests they ride TV around and knock the other teams off. Before that can happen though, Robot Flower, now in her mean era, knocks TV off the platform 8 minutes into a 20-minute episode. This would be fine, the nature of the challenge eliminates characters after all, if Are You OK wasn't put up for elimination, but they are, with every team member getting more screen time than TV. I'd say there are characters who've gotten worse edits, but a bad edit in general, especially for a non-veteran, can be a death sentence. It doesn't look good on the surface, but episode 9 starts off real casual, with lava-infested barf causing the zombie apocalypse. Some characters are claimed right away, but everyone else escapes to the hotel for the elimination ceremony. Are You OK goes first, and the first pair safe are Eraser and TV. Pen and Tennis Ball follow after, leaving Golf Ball and Puffball in the bottom two. Puffball says she's happy that her and Golf Ball found some common ground before being zombified, and by a 3-vote difference, she is also eliminated. This was very surprising to myself, and likely a lot of people, because this is where the hate really began to fester. I really like Puffball too, and seeing her eliminated so soon was sad to see, but again, it was not without a fight. Remember, the gap between the bottom 3 and TPOT 6 being 46 votes was already pretty close, but the gap between the first save Eraser and the eliminated Puffball was only 72 votes, which is crazy close. It should be noted that the voting was done through the comments up until episode 12 of TPOT, meaning that they were publicly available and trackable. This explains the vote wars of these two eliminations, and shows how each character on Are You OK had enough fans for them to rally and try to keep them in the game. It turned this vote into literal Russian roulette, with really no good outcomes. Puffball was just the unfortunate victim, and TV was unfortunately blamed. The flack TV received for surviving this vote was likely only quantified by him not having a super major role in this episode either, yet it does show more of his character. He splits up with Eraser and Teardrop before sacrificing himself so they can survive. Good he did that too, because if Teardrop died there would be no stopping the zombie apocalypse. Because TB and GB survive, his team is safe to cruise their way through the next episode. Also, the maybe main antagonist of this season 1 is introduced at the end. It's not really relevant for TV, but she does jumble up the teams and is related to what TV does later, so just keep that in mind. Episode 10 is not only an amazing episode, but also a fun one for Are You OK? The challenge is to go into the nightmare of one teammate and wake them up from their dream. Are You OK? Goes into Pen's nightmare, which is that he will go to jail if he doesn't pay off his $200 vigintillion debt. TV proposes the simplest solution, being to just help him make the money back. Unfortunately, they aren't getting anywhere close until Golf Ball remembers that when she dies in her dreams, she wakes up, and everyone agrees that just sounds easier to kill him. They fail to take him out, but Pen still dies anyway, which wakes him up and makes them safe. After he wakes, Pen is sad that all the money they made was fake, but TV and Eraser comfort him, and it's just really nice. Seriously, the TV and Pen dynamic is very underappreciated, and I wouldn't be surprised if it gets explored more in the future. TPOT 11 doesn't focus on the current competitors, but it is important to remember for TV's new team in the next stage of the game. Speaking of which, Episode 12 marks a new stage in the game. No team formation phase this time since one jumbles the teams, but we do have a new team to look at. We have Pen, Tennis Ball, and TV from Are You OK? Basketball from The Strongest Team on Earth, and a better name than that, Bottle from The S, and Needle from Teammates, making up the new team, Do, or Bagged if you take the note names. Shortly before the name is picked, Tennis Ball starts getting hella stressed about having to be the team leader now that Golf Ball is gone, but TV comforts him like the bro he is. After that, but before the challenge starts, Basketball approaches both Tennis Ball and TV to let them know she saw someone take Bommy and Belle after they got eliminated, but TV doesn't want to hear it. He cites her messing up Robot Flower as his reasoning, and Tennis Ball doesn't hear her out either, so she leaves feeling frustrated. We learn later that anyone who hasn't met one can't really understand her unless they see her in the flesh, so this interaction could definitely be the result of that. That's less important for TV though, since he has to contend with another weak edit. The challenge is to fill pits with stuff. Needle covers TV with glue, things get sticky, and everyone who gets stuck falls into one of the pits. Bagged loses the challenge too, with everyone else on the team being given something fresh. TV was a commonly predicted boot here, and it could have been the end of the road for him, even with that amazing voting icon. But episode 9 proved that he's survived when the odds are against him before. Needless to say, this would lead to another surprising elimination. Episode 13 is one of my favorite episodes of the series with how it raises the stakes. A bunch of crazy stuff is going down in the hotel, starting with a debut. Pencil and Lai, two characters eliminated early in BFB, join the game, and Lai becomes the new member of Bagged. For the elimination, Claudia loses Barf Bag first, before we see how things go for Bagged. Tennis Ball and Pen are the first two safe, followed by Basketball, followed by TV, ending with Bottle surviving over Needle in a big upset. This wasn't even a huge voting war. Needle only got good content and was completely passed up by the voters. Despite not being in the bottom two yet again, TV got a ton of flack for surviving over Needle. The blow was worsened by how TV isn't given a ton of focus in this episode either, even if he does contribute. Bagged is tasked with warding off a giant David attacking the hotel, so TV's slide shows some handy info on the David before Tennis Ball mods some new treads on him to distract the David while Pen, Lai, and Bottle get milk so they can put him to sleep. Again, he is still solid, but TV isn't the sole reason I like this episode so much, and since Bagged is safe, we can really just move on. Episode 14 is a bit of a breather, and man, while I like this episode, and think TV is really good here, there isn't really much specific stuff to dive into. TV helps the failed debuters host the elimination, but from then onward, the challenge doesn't really focus on any specific character. Pen gets a tiny bit of focus, being sad that Eraser got eliminated, and lasts long in the challenge. Tennis Ball tries to lead the team, Lai is pretty enjoyable, Basketball is here, and Bottle and TV mostly just have fun moments. They lose the challenge, so you may expect this vote to be treacherous for TV, but it really isn't. Sure, he doesn't have any standout moments, but being generally enjoyable, combined with how Basketball got super screwed here, made him appear to be in a good spot. Basketball's arc with Robot Flower, that TV started, did only end last episode, but her minimal presence seemed to doom her, even with some growing support. Still, let's see how this goes. Episode 15 is the big one. Not for TV specifically, but it further expands on the stakes established by TPOT 13 into some new and interesting plotlines. After some failed debuters travel back in time, the present starts getting screwed up through them changing the timeline. Black Hole is the only one to know something is wrong at first, so even with the shifting hosts, the elimination still functions mostly normal. Tennis Ball is the first safe, followed by Lai, followed by Pen and Bottle, leaving TV and Basketball in the bottom two. For a moment, my resolve wavered, thinking Basketball somehow got enough votes to survive, but the reality was honestly quite pathetic. TV survives with almost double the amount of votes Basketball got. As someone who likes Basketball, seeing her go out like this was a bit sad to see, but the votes here make sense. Since nobody got any standout moments, the votes reflect the general popularity of each character, with Lie getting a newbie bonus, Basketball getting no screen time, and Bottle having some momentum behind her after being in the bottom 2 in the last bagged elimination. People were still mad or sad about the outcome, but since it was mostly predicted, the outcry wasn't as loud from the terminally online crowd. It's probably a good thing he survived in-universe though, as once one allows everyone to realize something's not right, Penn asks TV to scan the timeline. He does so, identifying where the failed debuters ended up. Because him and Black Hole have some unique skills, they actually stay in the present to be pseudo-hosts for the episode. They keep track of where things are getting really messed up, and direct teams to where the problems are. Since the major conflict of the episode is on Cloutier, he doesn't really get much direct focus outside of helping repair the universe, but his contributions are definitely still important. He probably would have been cooked if his team lost though, but luckily they didn't, so crisis averted. Not much else to add here for TV, but I do like how when everyone thinks the world is lost, TV seems to nervously accept it before panicking when the world starts to shake. That whole sequence has some really nice characterization, and that still includes TV, even in an episode he's not super directly focused on. In episode 16, TV's role stabilizes along with the rest of the cast. On Bagged, Penn and Lie siphon most of the focus in the hide-and-seek tag challenge, but TV is once again really good here, despite mostly flying solo. By using his screen, he tries to camouflage in order to evade capture, which works pretty well for the most part, until he's accidentally tagged by 4, reaching for Tree. Bag doesn't lose the challenge since Cloutier loses extra hard, keeping TV safe in a vote where, if they did lose, I don't think he's doomed, but considering how Tennis Ball had involvement in the one plotline tease through Fanny, even though it went nowhere, and Bottle got glazed for hiding behind a door, it would have been dicey. As much as I love TV, you could call him lucky for not being up for elimination these past couple episodes, considering he hasn't been like the star of the show. Not that a character needs an arc to be worth keeping, as characters like Snowball and Marker have been doing well in voting despite not having one, but having sole focus definitely helps. Am I bringing this up because TV finally gets some next episode? Well, episode 17 finally gives TV a lot of sole focus. The challenge, hosted by Bottle, breaks the teams up into groups competing for their team in mini events. TV's group is with Tree, Donut, and Grassy in a haunted house with the goal being to escape. Things start out chill until a giant robot spider starts to chase them. After Donut is flung away and Grassy smashes some smaller bugs with TV, Tree and Grassy make it to the elevator while TV is struggling to get in. He's about to slide through when...
Sorry, TV. I've been told I have to prioritize life.
But I am a life too, right?
No, TV!
Grassy, help.
Grassy, no!
As someone who likes Tree, what the hell man, but his actions do give some insight into how TV can be perceived by others, and even viewers who mostly ignore or dogpile him. Tree doesn't value the life of TV as much as Grassy himself, since he's a mechanical mind. TV may be treated as a friend or equal among his teammates, especially on Are You OK, but due to how little they've interacted, Tree doesn't have that mindset. Grassy protesting this decision shows this, since they were vibing all the way back on a better name than that. Despite that though, the elevator is already descending and TV is left to die at the hands of the spider. But he won't die. Once TV awakes within the spider, he admonishes Tree and even Grassy for not showing respect to mechanical minds. This makes him angry, vengeful even, and as revenge, he hijacks the robot spider and chases after them. TV takes out Grassy first, if unintentionally, and ignores Tree trying to silver tongue his way out of his wrath, only stopping his revenge after being crushed by Tennis Ball and the Force. He gets recovered after the challenge to display the results with a lot of personality, and is saddened by Bagged being up for elimination. With that, we should be caught up with the journey of TV, so let's dive deeper into the hate. I've already mentioned some of the reasons he's hated as they've come up, but here's the refresher. He's pinned as doing nothing, only being used as a tool, having no personality, and robbing better characters out of the game in a season meant to be very plot-centric. I'll start with those first two reasons since they're very interlinked. His lack of focus in BFB, combined with some TPOT episodes where he doesn't do a ton of stuff, is the main reason behind this point, along with him not having a clear character arc. The follow-up to only being used as a tool is used to try to counter bringing up direct things he does, like contributing to challenges and displaying information on his screen. Personally, I see TV utilizing being a TV as an inherent part of his character as a big positive. There are a lot of fun background gags done with TV and TPOT, and they make each episode great on rewatch just by paying more attention to him. I get the argument that his callbacks to older episodes could be repetitive, especially in the phase where he only spoke using them, but now that he uses the Scottish accent more, I think they're really fun when they appear. His use as a TV also falls in line with his personality, being focused on supporting others but being able to lock in if the situation calls for it. Also, calling him a tool for helping in challenges is very frivolous, since every character wants to win, and I'd say having more notable contributions is way better than having less. By undoing the tool defense, I think going through his whole journey so far has made it very clear that he has both personality and hasn't done nothing, even with some periods of having less focus. The cast size makes it okay to have some episodes without as much spotlight, and even without a full arc, it's fun to keep characters around simply because they're enjoyable to watch. Hell, if he does survive the elimination, which we'll get to later, I think he has potential for one he could be directly involved in with what they set up for him in episode 17. Now for the robbing characters argument. I could say how it's all viewer voting and he was only in the bottom 2 against basketball, but that feels too easy. Instead, I'll go into the circumstances that caused each character's elimination completely removed from TV. Starting with 8-Ball, he was a pretty obvious boot. Not only is he really unpopular, but the strange way his conflict with Golf Ball never really resolved meant it would surely be one of them getting eliminated, or even Robot Flower, since she was technically the reason they lost. Fries is a more interesting case, as while he was in a vote war, there are a couple more factors against him. He mainly stuck with Puffball in episode 5, and she got way more attention than the rest of Are You OK in episode 3 and 4. This could have made Puffball overshadow him, like Penn did in Needle, foreshadowing, and Grassy and Snowball did to Eraser. It's also important to remember that BFDIA hadn't started back up yet, which, as I said, didn't make him an easy out, but he lost out on any popularity he could have gained simply through more screen time. Puffball is probably the most poignant case, because even I admit TV didn't do much in the episode they were up for voting in, yet as I said when discussing TPOT 9, the whole team was in a crazy vote war. Every character had loyal voters, and it could have been anyone. Puffball was just unlucky in a vote where every character would be and is responsible for her departure. Needle's elimination was also crazy, but the situation really isn't as unique as expected. Her being in the bottom 2 against Coiny in TPOT 9 was almost a premonition of what happened here, being that she's a well-liked character who does well in Vote to Eliminate, but not really a vote magnet, with as many dedicated fans in Vote to Save. She was also overshadowed by Penn in the whole rivalry plotline they were setting up, since he's a character who usually does better at attracting votes. That only leaves Basketball, who was simply doomed by her edit. Even with her major role in episode 13, we've seen similar fall-offs before with how Bommy got out. Losing the attention of swing voters can be a death sentence, and that's just what happened to Basketball in her 2 minutes of screen time during that episode. All these explanations don't mean you can't still be mad at that TV didn't get eliminated, but saying it's purely his fault when not looking at the voting format or the episode circumstances just because you don't like him doesn't make any sense. Speaking of which, let's dive into what I think the future holds for him before I wrap up. For a while after episode 17 was released and the voting period ended, I was unsure about what I thought the outcome would be on both teams, which is still kind of the case as the middle placements could shift around, but for Bagged, I feel pretty confident about who the first safe and the one eliminated will be. Starting with the first safe, it's pretty clearly Penn. He's always done well in previous votes, but having major focus in this and last episode makes it very clear that he'll be the first safe. Bottle is a bit of a wild card, but I think her hosting will make her second safe. She's been on the upswing since episode 13, and with her big role hosting this episode, I doubt she'd be eliminated even if she underperforms. Being as unbiased as possible, I think TV is third safe. He's had consistent votes in episodes where he's not the main focus, and now that he's gotten more spotlight, I could definitely see a big rise in support. I've seen predictions with him getting out citing his hate base, but characters like Grassy, Pillow, and especially Pencil prove that you could still survive a vote even with some viewers against you. Bottom 2 time, Tennis Ball versus Lie. And they both have some pros and cons. Tennis Ball is a veteran with a lot of fans, along with being very deep into BFDIA, but in TPOT his screen time has waned. He was the first safe without having a huge role in episode 14, but as I said, no one really got one, which kept his position stable. TPOT 17 marks his 4th episode in a row without a major role, but even so, I doubt he'd fall off enough to get less votes than Lie. That isn't to say it won't be close, as her big role in episode 16 could definitely help her, but I think Lie is cooked here. She could easily be overshadowed by Pen in the same way Needle was, especially when she died so early in the eating challenge she was a part of. Combined with the fact that her debut was a while ago, I think Lie will be the eliminated character on Bagged. This is just a long-winded way of me saying that I think TV will survive once again, but what will he do once he survives? His conflict with Tree could definitely be expanded on, maybe through a rivalry or sabotage, along with showing more of his malicious drive to win. TV already works really well independently, but they could give him more interactions with Pen if Lie's eliminated, Tennis Ball, Golf Ball, Grassy if he survives, or even some new connections. I don't think he's up for elimination next episode, regardless if the merge hits or not, so I think he will remain relevant now that the cast is getting smaller. I doubt he'll win the season, but I hope he'll get more time to shine. All this is to say is that while you could still not care about or even hate TV, selling him short isn't a good way to make your opinion seem more valuable. For me, characters like Marker, Eraser, or Gady didn't stand out to me much at first, but on rewatch I've really come to like them. Having an open mind to the many characters of this show, and not letting your mind be clouded by hate, to me is the best way to recognize this massive cast of characters. His visual uniqueness, fun moments, and a want for him to become more plot relevant has garnered him a quiet yet dedicated fanbase that's pulled through even when the odds were against him. Sure, I'll be sad if my prediction was just copium and TV gets eliminated, but reaching the final 17 is no small feat. He may not be a character some people would expect to make it this far into the season, but it's an undeniable fact that his survival thus far has been no fluke. Like every character in the final 17, he has earned his spot in the game. That's all I gotta say. Sub, like, share, comment, hit that bell, and look forward to more videos in the future. Thank you for watching.